Why you should avoid people who overshare everything. In a world that praises transparency, we often forget the value of discretion. We're told that openness is strength, that vulnerability is virtue. And while there's truth in honest connection, there's also a quiet danger in unfiltered expression. The kind of danger the Stoics warned us about centuries ago. We live in an age of oversharing, where people bleed their stories into every room, where silence is awkward and mystery is suspect. But what happens when a person shares too much? Too quickly? Too often? What does it say about them? More importantly, what effect does it have on you? According to the Stoics, a wise person speaks only when necessary, and never out of compulsion. They are deliberate, guarded, and composed, because to reveal everything is not a sign of confidence. It's often a symptom of emotional chaos. The Stoic ideal: reserve and restraint. To the Stoics, virtue wasn't loud. It didn't seek applause or constant reassurance. It wasn't performed, tweeted, or live-streamed. It lived quietly within a disciplined mind. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, could have broadcasted his every thought to the empire. Instead, he wrote Meditations, a private journal, never intended for public eyes. That's Stoicism in practice. Value what's inner, not what's shared. When someone shares everything, their trauma, opinions, secrets, frustrations, without discernment, they may seem open, but openness without boundaries is not wisdom. It's exposure. And exposure can be dangerous to them and to you. Why oversharing should raise red flags. 1. It signals emotional instability. Someone who constantly overshares is often not in control of their emotions. Their need to vent, confess, or dramatize comes from a lack of internal regulation. They speak not because it serves a purpose, but because silence makes them uncomfortable. In Stoic terms, they're slaves to pathos, the irrational passions that dominate the untrained mind. Instead of observing their feelings, they leak them. Instead of mastering their thoughts, they turn them into spectacle. 2. It violates the natural order of trust. Trust is built slowly, like layering stone on stone. Overshares bulldoze this process. They unload private information early in relationships, forcing intimacy that hasn't been earned. It may feel flattering at first, wow, they trust me, but more often than not, this kind of behavior is a red flag. Why? Because if someone gives away their deepest wounds without knowing you, it means they don't protect their boundaries. And people who don't protect theirs won't respect yours. 3. It creates emotional burden. You weren't meant to be everyone's therapist. But people who overshare often turn others into emotional dumping grounds. They tell you everything about their ex, their trauma, their childhood, their enemies, and expect you to absorb it all. But in doing so, they burden you with stories you didn't ask for and problems you can't fix. This isn't connection, it's emotional pollution. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency, autarkia. To lean too heavily on others is a sign that we have not yet learned to carry ourselves. And to allow others to lean on us constantly, without invitation, is to betray our own peace. Oversharing is a form of ego. Though it might look like vulnerability, oversharing is often driven by ego. Not the inflated kind, but the fragile kind. People overshare to feel significant, to be seen, to fill the silence with proof that they matter. They confuse attention with intimacy. They mistake reaction for validation. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." A person who overshares doesn't just fill your ears, they cloud your clarity. They make it harder for you to hear your own inner voice. True wisdom speaks rarely and listens deeply. A wise person considers, is what I'm about to say necessary? Is it virtuous? Is it helpful? Overshares ask only, can I get this off my chest? You become who you're around. The Stoics emphasized the importance of your circle. You absorb the energy of those around you, not just their words, but their habits, their values, their temperament. When you consistently spend time around someone who overshares, you start to mimic their behavior. You lower your standards of discretion. You begin to mistake chaos for depth, noise for connection, trauma for truth, and gradually, you stop protecting your inner peace. You become reactive. You begin oversharing. 2. Out of habit, not intention. You trade stoic composure for performative vulnerability. You exchange self-possession for social approval. And worst of all, you forget that silence is power. The strength of mystery. Mystery is not manipulation, it's maturity. It is the recognition that not everything needs to be said. That some things are better kept sacred, known only to you and your conscience. The Stoics didn't just value wisdom. They valued sophrosyne, temperance, balance, self-control. A person who always speaks doesn't just reveal themselves, they reduce themselves. They hand away pieces of their identity to anyone who's listening. And once it's out there, you can't take it back. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you're constantly speaking about pain, chaos, conflict, your soul takes on those colors. The more you relive your suffering through words, the more you identify with it. There is great strength in being known, but greater strength in knowing yourself without needing to be known. Not everyone deserves to know you. The modern world makes privacy seem outdated. Social media thrives on confession. Oversharing is applauded, but a wise person knows, not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, they are sacred. To share them with everyone is to cheapen them. To hand them to someone who hasn't earned your trust is to devalue your self-respect. Epictetus advised, keep your philosophy to yourself unless asked. Not because it isn't worth sharing, but because sharing is a sacred act. You must first discern who is ready to receive. How to spot and handle chronic overshares. So how do you identify someone who overshares in a harmful way? They dominate conversations with deeply personal stories, often without prompting. They rarely ask about you in return. They use vulnerability to control or guilt others. They overshare as a shortcut to connection. They seem emotionally chaotic or unstable after conversations. When you encounter someone like this, 1. Set boundaries early. If a conversation is too personal too quickly, redirect. You are not rude, you are protecting your peace. 2. Don't match their energy. Just because they overshare doesn't mean you should. Hold your line. 3. Practice compassionate detachment. Understand that oversharing often comes from pain. You can empathize without being consumed. 4. Limit your exposure. Some people are not bad, they are just draining. And your peace is more important than their validation. Cultivate Stoic speech. The Stoic doesn't avoid speech, they elevate it. They speak only when their words serve virtue. They value inner peace more than outward connection. They choose their audience wisely. They are slow to speak, quick to listen, and always in command of their tone. Speak less, and when you do, let it be as clean and precise as a blade. Not to cut, but to carve clarity. In a world that celebrates noise, become the person who honors silence. Closing thoughts. You do not owe the world your every thought. You are not obligated to absorb the emotional chaos of others. Just because someone is loud about their life doesn't mean they live it well. Protect your peace. Guard your inner world like sacred ground. And remember, what you choose to share is a reflection of what you value, and how you value yourself. As Marcus Aurelius said, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? In most cases, silence is the strongest answer.